I have finally cleared my mountain of whips. If you're in disbelief, I am also very much in disbelief. I thought this day would never come. But so now I have the luxury of planning my new projects using some stash yarn. Hi everyone, quick message from me way after I recorded the video that you're about to see. But I wanted to quickly jump in to give you an update, which is to say that I had my baby. Little Alice was born in early December and has really kept us on our toes ever since. Thankfully, we're both doing well now, but we had a little bit of a rough period with an extra stay in hospital, and so there was a bit to work through. So that would probably be why you haven't heard from me for a little while, and why this video is just very quickly taken on my phone, so sorry if the sound is terrible. As you can see, our house is in disarray, but we are so happy to be at home with our little girl, and I can't wait to tell you a little bit more about it. But in the meantime, here's a video that I recorded before I gave birth, and it's still relevant because I still hope to do all of the things that I talk about in this video. So thanks guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Welcome back to my knitting channel. My name is Nadine, and you can find me at yourknittingbestie on Instagram, Ravelry, and here on YouTube. So on this channel I talk about my knitting, particularly what it's like to be a person who's obsessed with knitting in a country that is obsessed with hot weather. And in today's video, we are chatting about some new projects that I intend to cast on using my stash yarn. So let's jump straight into it. The first project is one that I am super excited about. It is taking up a lot of brain space at the moment. It's one of those projects that I just can't stop thinking about and had to cast on. So this is actually it's not really a planning project. I planned it yesterday and then cast it on yesterday. So this is the Maggie vest by Petite Knit. So I'm not usually a fan of Petite Knit patterns because a lot of them are made for cold weather. So it's a little bit difficult to knit them here in my climate, unless you accept that they're kind of a project that you'll wear indoors in air conditioning, in which case it's fine. I actually filmed a video on how to hack winter patterns to make them more friendly to warm climates, and I'm a little hesitant to publish it because I know a lot of my viewers are from warmer climates. So it feels a little bit like telling you how to suck eggs, like it's telling you stuff that you've probably already figured out yourself. But let me know, do you think is that a video that you might be interested in seeing, like how I would adapt patterns for hot weather? Yeah, let me know. But anyway, so I have adapted this Maggie vest pattern for hot weather. And it's not particularly groundbreaking the way that I've adapted this pattern for hot weather. I've just substituted in a different yarn. So the pattern calls for a DK weight gauge, which is probably heading towards the thicker side of or the heavier side of a gauge I would use for a summer project. I usually prefer a fingering weight, but a DK weight I'll do at a stretch. Particularly for something like the Maggie vest, which doesn't have sleeves, and I think, it could be okay on a really hot day. So in the pattern, they recommend cashmere or the double Sunday, which I think is just a straight wool, isn't it? So not fibres that you immediately call to mind as a knitter in summer in Australia. Unless, of course, you're knitting it to wear it in cooler weather and you can knit in the aircon, in which case, terrific. But so I've decided to adapt the pattern to be made with drop spell. And I talk about this in that other video, so I won't harp on too much in case I do publish that one. But basically, the gauge wasn't exactly the same, so I just changed my needle size. I think I went down from a 4mm to a 3.5mm, and I ended up with a very close gauge. So I think my gauge was 22 stitches to 10 centimeters, and the pattern calls for 23 stitches. So I did a little bit of math and I figured out if I used my gauge, which is here, for the pattern, I would end up with 5 centimeters of extra fabric than what the pattern called for. And I thought that was fine because the recommended ease for this pattern is 5 centimeters, but I like 10 centimeters of positive ease. So I was quite happy to knit the recommended size, knowing that mine would end up just a smidge bigger, and yeah, fine with that. I did have some concerns because, as I'm sure a bunch of you know, with kind of natural fibres, so this one, sorry, I should have said this before, is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. So it is a nice summer fibre and it seems to be well reviewed on Ravelry. But of course, these sorts of fibre don't have that halo that kind of blurs the stitches together. And it also doesn't have much stretch to it. So you do have to be really careful with gauge. And it brings up, I think, any inconsistencies in your tension. So if you have a look at my swatch, which hopefully my camera will focus on, it's reasonably okay, but I think if I catch it at the right angle with the light, you'll be able to see that I did row out a little bit. And by rowing out, I mean my purl gauge was a little bit different to my knit gauge because I'm knitting flat, and this whole project will be knit flat because it's a button-up vest. So you could, of course, fix that. Oh yeah, there you can see it a little bit there. You could fix this by having a different needle for the needle that you use for your purl row. So I think it's usual that your purl row is a little bit looser than your knit row. So you could go down a size for the purl row and see if that makes it look more even. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have a smaller needle that goes with this needle set. So 3.5 is as small as it goes, and I wouldn't be able to kind of sub in a different needle from a different set using the same cord, if that makes any sense. So I'm just sticking with the rowing out. It doesn't bother me overly much. Does it? No, it doesn't. I think it'll just make it look a little bit more homemade, but not in a way that's kind of in your face, this looks shoddy sort of way. Just a tiny imperfection that maybe just someone who's in the know might notice, but I think anyone off the street would absolutely not. So yeah, I did get a little bit excited and cast on. So this is where I've got up to yesterday, which was a great sit on the couch and knit day. Fabulous. It was even raining, so it was lovely. Anyway, so I got through one ball of drop spell, or what was left over after doing the gauge swatch anyway. So this is about as far as one ball goes. And so far we've just kind of cast on stitches, which will be the top back, and then done a bunch of increases along the side here, if my camera will focus, to kind of bring it out to shape, I think, the shoulders here. The only thing is that the pattern does call for increases on both sides of the fabric, meaning every row you're doing increases at either side of your knitting, which can feel a little bit tight on the needles, particularly when you're using a fibre like this that just doesn't have that stretch to it. So it can be a little bit difficult to make those increases on both sides, but it is only for a short amount of time, a short number of rows that you're doing the double increases, and then you knit flat for a little while. So I've got a bit of TV knitting to do to finish up the back and start the increases for the armhole. So I'm really excited for how that project will turn out. I have a feeling that it'll have a different look and feel to it with this drop spell than with the recommended yarn. So with the recommended yarn, it looks very much like a sweater, whereas with this yarn, I'm hoping it looks kind of like a elevated tank top. I hope that makes some sense. I don't know if that does make some sense, but I think it'll look like a polished summer garment. I hope. I'm a little bit worried about ribbing because I find that, and there is a fair bit of ribbing, so there's the button bands and then at the bottom and then around the armhole and the neckline. I'm a little worried about that looking messy with this yarn because, yeah, it doesn't have that elasticity and blur to it that using the wool or the cashmere would have. But I remain hopeful, and yeah, I'm really excited to see how it turns out. It's a bit of a gamble, but I hope it pays off for me. Okay, so the next project I have planned is another baby knit. And this one is because I have this idea. So, my boss mentioned before I left work that the best thing that he did with his wife when they had their newborn was to get professional photos done of the baby when she was first born. Because, you know, they have that little scrunch going on and they look particularly cute. Uh, and he said that was a really good idea and that you have to do it within the first 10 days or something before they lose that newborn scrunch. Um, so he showed me the photos that he had done and they look beautiful. You know, those really cute ones where the baby's kind of like sitting like this and they have their head in their hands and they're probably asleep, and their little legs out the side and they just look like a little froggy or something. He had one of those photos with the kind of classic bear bonnet hat on. So even though I've just finished a hat pattern, which is stuck, even though I've just finished a hat pattern, I think as a matter of urgency, I need to knit the bear bonnet. Wait, what's it called? Yes, the Baby Bear Bonnet by Pernille Larsen. I think I must have one because I would like to stage a little photo shoot at home. I don't think I can quite bring myself to pay hundreds of dollars for the professional photos because my sister is really into photography and has willingly agreed to help me put together a little newborn photo shoot at home, which I thought might be nicer, you know, just with my sister in that period after you've given birth, rather than having someone come in that you don't know or having to go out to get it done. So I think this is such a cute hat. I've seen it on the kind of, when I was looking through patterns in order of kind of greatest of all time. This is a very popular one. So I'm sure some of you have probably knit it for babies or grandbabies. So I'm looking forward to having a crack at it because it does actually look like interesting construction as well. A little bit different to just this straightforward hat. The difficulty is, when I was looking at my stash, I wasn't 100% sure what to use for this one. So the pattern calls for knitting for olive merino, which is a fingering weight, held together with the knitting for olive soft silk mohair, which is a lace, on 3.5 or 4mm needles to get a gauge of 23 stitches and 34 rows. So I have this ball of yarn, which is another Bellissimo. So baby girl is going to be decked out in Bellissimo yarn, which is very fancy. But that is just the one yarn, which I think is the fingering weight. So I needed to find a mohair, and I don't have a bunch of mohair lying around because I don't really use it too often in my projects. Because yeah, I just don't. It's expensive, and in hot weather, the fibers can sometimes irritate you if you don't have the right mohair. No one likes to have fuzzy fabric when they're sweating. But I did find this skein of yarn, which I've been saving for ages. I think I got it overseas in the UK. Sorry, it's a new camera, so I'm just trying to figure out. There we go. So that's a lace weight yarn, and it's reasonably close to the colour there, and I thought it might go together and it might work out okay for the gauge. So I think that's what I'm going to use for that little bear bonnet. Alternatively, I could use this rose gold mystery yarn, which I found in my stash, that I think would actually go really nicely with this shade of fingering weight yarn. And I saw a comment saying that you can knit this in a day. So that is very good because I'm told I could go into labour at any moment. I'm in that weird period of time where you could give birth like in 2 hours or 2 weeks and you're just waiting to see what happens. So, but in my mind, if I did happen to go into labour, if this is a 1-day knit, maybe I could still get it done within the 10-day window before the photo shoot has to happen. We'll see. It also looks like a bit of an interesting construction. So worked back and forth, beginning at the band, which you can do in moss stitch or ribbed, and then continuing in stockinette to the bare ears. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a crack at that little project, and I think it'll be so cute. So the next one is a little romper, and this one is kind of a, if I have time, I will probably do it. So this one is $6 USD or $9.70 AUD. Knit bottom up, apparently written in very plain terms, which I love. The clarity rating on Ravelry is a little low at 3.8, but the overall rating for the pattern is 4.3 stars. So hopefully it's an okay pattern. Again, it's made for fingering or 4-ply weight yarn. So I was thinking of using my olive oil coloured Cascade 220, which is what I used for my Rabumpulus, and I have some left over. The only thing is it's a little bit scratchy because it's a little bit of a rustic wool, but I thought if baby girl were to wear kind of a onesie or something underneath it, like a little singlet onesie, perhaps that would be okay. And honestly, after you kind of block it in some nice soft wool wash, it comes out reasonably soft. So I'm hoping that that yarn could work okay. But I really like the lace panel at the front, and the garter finishing I think is quite cute. And I've just never knit something in this construction before. So if I can get to this, I think it would be really cute. And I think it would be nice in also the newborn photo shoot. And so I only have one other project kind of planned for immediate cast on, which is a pair of socks. And this is for my father-in-law's Christmas present, which might actually be a present next year if the year goes as I think it will. But I do routinely give him a pair of socks every Christmas, so I do want to have a go at casting some on for him. So the ones I picked out are a pattern that was gifted to me by a viewer a little while ago, so thank you very much. It's the Coffee Talk by Tracy Miller, and this one uses 2 colours and has kind of a different texture on the front of the foot, and then plain stockinette on the back and the kind of sole of the sock. So I think it looks really nice. Where's my yarn? I have these 2 colours, which I was thinking of using to make Michael a pair of socks, but I think I could use to make these socks instead, and I think it would be quite nice. Peter does wear all of the socks I give him, regardless of how outrageous the colours are, so I think I can get away with some bubblegum pink on the accents. So I'm thinking the cuff, the heel, and the toe in pink, and perhaps the rest in this kind of rust colour could be quite nice. And I really want to challenge myself this time to do the socks 2 at a time, because I think that will resolve the issues that I've had in tension between one sock and the other. And I think it'll also just help me get both socks finished, because I am finding that second sock syndrome really gets me. So I'm hoping that learning to do 2 at a time will help me actually finish the project. So that's the last project that I have planned for the moment. Of course, there's a whole bunch of other ones that I really want to knit. So honourable mention to the Norwegian fur top-down cardigan by OGE Knitwear Designs, which was again gifted to me by a very kind viewer, so thank you so much. I will definitely be making this at some point because it has a tremendous range of sizes from 0 to 3 months up to 9 years. So you can knit that really at any time, or knit it repeatedly. And that one's a very popular pattern, I believe. It's got a lot of projects on Ravelry. And it's DK weight gauge. So I do have some yarn lying around that I could use to make that. But I don't know if I'm going to get to it realistically in the next little while. And I'm very cautious of casting on too many projects and then getting kind of overwhelmed by my whips again. So I'm hopeful that if I keep it to kind of 3 main projects, that will be a sustainable amount that I can keep going and get finished in a reasonable amount of time. So I think that's it for me for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do let me know if you do want to see the video on how I adapt winter patterns for hot weather, because I'm just a bit on the fence about it. I do have it recorded and pretty much edited, but I just don't want to tell you what you already know. So yeah, please do let me know about that. But otherwise, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. That would be fantastic. And if you haven't subscribed, it would be amazing if you'd consider subscribing. But otherwise, I hope you've got some great knitting time coming in the run-up to Christmas, and that you're not too overwhelmed by gift knitting, which is usually the headache at this time of year, isn't it? I have pretty much told people that I'm not doing gift knitting this year, and their present is the baby. That's what I'm working on for them at the minute. So I've got a bit of a reprieve on gift knitting, but I know it is a bit of a headache. But I guess that's what we do for the people we love, right? So yeah, I hope you've had some great knitting time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.